Every preseason, the media gives you a bunch of teams that they think are going to be good out of nowhere and compete for a national championship, but they always flounder. Stick around. This is Way Offsides. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Throw up the L's for Lank, and welcome to Way Offsides.
Welcome.
Jeff, every season, actually, let's start here. You know what's wrong with college football?
I don't think I have enough time for that.
You could say a lot of things. You could say the transfer portal. You could say coaching carousels. You could say NIL. But I would argue that the biggest problem college football faces in 2024 is the media. And here's why. Every season, the know-it-alls, the talking heads of ESPN and Fox Sports and all these different organizations, these experts, tell us about these teams that are going to be really, really, really good.
Very loose term.
Yes, yeah. And it seems like they have their favorites. They have these teams that every season they say, hey, this team's going to be really good. Look out for them. And then somewhere along the line, the team proves that they are not good and the media was just biased in the first place. And sometimes it can be a big brand name. Sometimes it can be a new up-and-comer, a little foreshadowing here. But I figured it would be a fun topic to talk about some of these teams that the media constantly is telling us, hey, this team's going to be really good this season. We're already done with week one. Before you know it, we're going to be a quarter of the way through this college football season, and we'll know who's good and who's not. Your philosophy is we don't know how good anybody is right now. It's really hard to tell, right?
Right.
But the media seems to always pick their sweethearts. And, the most obvious example of them failing at that this year was they put Florida State at number 10, preseason number 10. Florida State's 0-2 with losses to Georgia Tech and Boston College now. So what are other teams that they consistently do this with that don't really have a leg to stand on in being crowned the preseason favorite to do all these things? Guys, if you're watching, if you're tuning in and you've got a team that just popped in your head, put it in the comment section below. And while you're at it, make sure you're doing all the things. All of them. Liking, subscribing. If you hit that notification bell, every time Jeff and I get on here and complain and bitch and moan about things, you won't miss it. And share this with your friends. If you're watching us on other forms, social media, share, retweet,
Please
comment, and then go over to YouTube and do the other things. But Jeff, I know
every now and then there's a gym in here.
I know that you've got this is something you're passionate about like I am, and you've got cases for 4 teams right off the bat that you want to talk about. So I'm going to let you have the floor and bring the heat, sir. Bring the heat.
All right. So our first group up, we're going to get this so we can see here. Our first group up is everybody's favorite, Bill's favorite team, our lovely Colorado Buffaloes. Let me remove this banner. There we go. So we can see. We're going to go back 10 years. Now, this is a stellar 10-year run for the Buffaloes here. I mean, they've had 2 postseason games in the last decade, lost them both. But everybody's crowning them this year because Deion's the coach and the hype's around Deion. I mean, last year they went 4-8, and you would have thought they went 10-2 and won the Pac-12.
Yeah.
I mean, from beating an overrated TCU team that put them on the map, and then, having beating Colorado State in that weird game and having Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders, which rightly so, the hype is well deserved. I mean, those are 2 of the top players.
Sure.
Probably they could go 1 and 2 in the draft, honestly, if they ball out the year, regardless what the team does. But look at this past decade run here. I mean, 1 winning season in 10 years. But they had them ranked all the way up to what? Top 10 last year when they were 2-0 or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man.
And they based it, off of, like you said, that TCU win, which Anybody, I get it. The year before, TCU played Georgia in the national championship, but anybody who watched that season and watched that playoff and watched that national championship who isn't TCU would tell you that team had no business even sniffing
None.
anywhere near that 14 playoff. And I'm not saying that because I'm an Alabama fan and Alabama got snubbed. Alabama had 2 losses. They had their shot and they screwed the pooch on it. But TCU was not one of the best 4 teams in the country. And so they lose all that talent that got them there in the first place. And then everybody wants to overreact to Colorado barely beating them, the opener. And then they go squeak out an overtime win against Colorado State. And everybody acts like they're going to be the national champion because Travis Hunter looked so good. And all that was fed into leading up into the season with the preseason hype. And Colorado is actually the team that inspired me to put this segment together because as the season crept closer this offseason, everybody in the media started doing it again.
Yeah.
And what did Colorado do on the field last weekend? They barely beat North Dakota State. And I know what some of you guys are saying. Oh, you don't know ball. North Dakota State's a good team. North Dakota State's not as good as that TCU team that shouldn't have been in the playoff. They're not.
There's the reason they're FCS.
Yes, and Colorado could barely handle them. They could barely handle them. Well, I got news for them. They're not in the Pac-12 anymore. So that 10-4 season with the Alamo Bowl loss in 2016, that's the best they're going to be looking at moving forward. And so, I agree with you. And I get it. They're more of a newcomer to this, and it's all because of Deion Sanders. I love Deion Sanders. I think he's an electric guy who pulls and demands a lot of attention around a program.
Agreed.
That's why I thought that he would fit with Alabama when Nick Saban left, not because I thought he was an X's and O's guy, but because I thought he could be the guy that would keep those recruits on campus and still bring in other recruits. But Colorado they're still Colorado. Travis Hunter's the best player in the country, hands down. I mean, the dude played like 126 snaps his last game. I don't care who the opponent is. That's impressive. And Shedeur Sanders is a damn good quarterback, but ultimately, as a unit, as a team, I kind of look at it like this FSU team this year. There's a lot of eyes on that team, and they're not going to live up to those preseason expectations that the media has set. So that's just
you can't. It's hard to. And Florida State, Colorado, they have good players on the team.
Yeah,
we're not saying that the team is a bunch of scrubs. Each team has good players on the team, but it's more than just good players. It's got to be a culture. It's got to be a commitment. It's got to be everything that Kalen DeBoer is continuing to grow at Alabama, that Nick Saban laid the foundation with, and that Kalen DeBoer is now ascending this into a new echelon, a more modern echelon of success. Yeah, and a standard to be laid. And Colorado could be getting there, but we shouldn't be talking. There shouldn't be segments on College Game Day for a 4-8 team. There just shouldn't. And I know that Colorado has all the stars and all the Hall of Famers and all the musicians and artists and everybody, all the famous people coming to their games and all that. And that's fine and dandy and all. But, this is when it comes down to it, you're trying to win the game.
Yeah. Yeah. And you didn't last year. And I believe that
happened a lot here.
This season's going to play out a lot like last season did for Colorado. Look, as much as they want to act like they're the U of the 80s and early 90s, they're not.
No.
I mean,
they're not. Segue, too. Good segue into the next school that we're going to talk about here.
Miami.
The U. My pick to win the ACC this year.
Yes.
But, I mean, this is just a consistent run of mediocrity right here. Sprinkle in a 10 win. That was Rick's, I think 17. That was Rick's 10-win year, right?
Yeah.
Lost them. I mean, look at all these L's in the postseason. They're in the postseason.
Had one postseason win in the last 10 years.
That's it.
Wild.
That's insane.
Who was that?
Miami.
Against?
Look at.
You know who that was against?
I couldn't even tell you. The Russell Athletic Bowl. I can't remember who they beat. But look at these L's, man. And there's winning seasons in here. There's an 8-3, a 7-5, a 10-3, a 9-4, an 8-5. I mean, there's winning seasons in here. But this Miami's continued hype is because of the U phenomenon from the 80s, and it's just carried over into these decades. Even though the run of success hasn't been there, there's a swagger with the U, even when the wins aren't there.
Yeah.
But there's just something about the U, that logo, that garners attention, and you get swagger with it.
Well, we'll say
carry yourself
this.
with swagger. So
it was West Virginia, by the way, in that Russell
Okay.
Athletic Bowl. But I will say this, in terms of the state of Florida, just that state, they are clearly the best team in the state of Florida right now. But
agreed.
I mean, in terms of like looking at Miami on a national level, when you put them up against Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, yeah, the media does tend to hype them up. Now, I will say I do think Miami has some pieces to make some noise this year.
Agreed.
So we'll see. Maybe they make us eat some crow here. But just based off this 10-year, I'm a trend guy. I look at everything. Everything works on a curve.
Right.
And so,
I'm with you.
Yeah. So just based off the trend here, I don't see anything that would make me feel comfortable saying that the U is back. Although they tell you,
I wouldn't say that yet, but I do. If they win the ACC and get in the playoffs, maybe win a playoff game. Who knows?
I think they would have to win a playoff game. Yeah, not just make the playoff. It's for conference champions. I don't know how I feel about that rule.
Yeah,
they get an automatic playoff bid, but
I don't like automatic anythings.
No, I don't either. But yeah, I mean, Miami definitely belongs on this list. The media every year, they hype up Miami. They have this year. We'll see what happens with. It's hard to tell how good Miami really is. I think that quarterback is very athletic, but I also think he's very errant in how he plays the game. And Florida's defense was not very good, so it made him look a lot better than he probably is. So Miami, yeah, they definitely belong on this list.
Well, that play he had where he threw across his body like into the middle of the field and got picked off easily, and it's like that. Plays like that are where you're going to get a 2 and 3 loss season.
Yeah,
there's going to be one of those in a big moment.
He did that a couple of times, and that time, it got picked off. Sticking with I guess you could call Miami. Maybe you could call them a blue blood, but sticking with the blue bloods of college football, I see who you've got on deck here, and this one's going to make Bill smile.
This is Bill's favorite team outside of Alabama, the Fighting Irish.
The Fighting Irish.
But look at this track record. I mean, there's a lot of good teams in these last 10 years. Most of them are Brian Kelly's, but still.
Yeah, who is now doing mediocre things at LSU.
LSU losing games he shouldn't at LSU, just like he did at Notre Dame.
That's true. That's a good point. Notre Dame is it's kind of a hard pill for some people to swallow when you talk about teams that always have this preseason hype. Notre Dame seems like they're consistently in the preseason top 10, but they never finish.
Always.
They never finish.
They'll always be that way. The media loves Notre Dame so much, they'll always put them in the top 10. Every playoff thing, every new twist, there's always a Notre Dame rule because Notre Dame is too greedy to get into a conference. They don't want to give up the NBC contract. And if they get into a conference that already has a TV contract, that they'll have to buy out NBC's deal, and nobody's going to do that. So Notre Dame will just keep putting around independent with their NBC money, not have to play a conference championship game. And if they get 10 wins, they're in the playoffs regardless of anything else.
So do you think this is a case of the brand being more valuable than the product that's on the field?
100%.
Yeah. That's sad. That's really sad.
And even though there's been some good teams here, I mean, 11-2, 12-1, 10-3, 10-3. And that, that's not even going back to the 12-0 team that Alabama slaughtered in the Orange Bowl.
Yeah.
We haven't even gotten back that far yet.
Notre Dame is that team that they've been afforded every opportunity to finish, but they just never do.
But they just never do. They're always in the conversation, or they've been these last 10 years, save for like 2016 here. And, in 2022, they lost 4. In 2014, they're 8-5. But all these other teams you're looking at here, 10, 11, 12 win teams, they're always in the conversation. And a majority of these teams would be in the playoffs at the current format right now. I'd say all these double-digit win teams you look on this list would be in a 12-team playoff.
Yeah, looking at them, and this one you don't have a graphic for, but it kind of reminds me of Tennessee, who is another team I would put in
Yes.
this video, who's always kind of got that preseason hype, and they never live up to it. But moving on, you've got another, I guess you could call blue blood on deck here, and this one could
a new
be on
member
the
of the
rise.
Big Ten, which is weird seeing USC in conference with Minnesota and Indiana. And
Yeah, it is wild. But the Trojans, but I want to preface this one by saying I think that USC could be the real deal this year, but I don't have faith in Lincoln Riley. But
I don't either.
yes, USC is one of those teams that it doesn't matter who their head coach is, doesn't matter who they lose. They could lose a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, and everybody's going to be incredibly high on them no matter what. And they still recruit well, but
Yeah,
not to the level of these consistently good programs. Alabama, Georgia, holding them to that standard. And so I agree. They're one of those teams that the media is constantly shoving down your throat in the preseason, and then they flop somewhere.
because they're Hollywood.
That's right. Jeff's providing plenty of evidence for you here. What sticks out to you the most, Jeff? Because I think I see something pretty interesting on here.
I mean, a few good seasons sprinkled in there. But in my opinion, the Pac-12 has been a winnable conference for all these years, and USC has a lot of no postseasons in there, a lot of L's at the end of the year, a lot of 5-loss teams, but the Pac-12 has been there to be had. I mean, Debo walked in there and won the Coach of the Year twice.
Yeah.
The 2 years he was there and won the conference.
Yeah. And then
it only took him 2 years to take a losing program and be a conference champion.
That's right.
It's hard to do that in the SEC. It'd be hard pressed for any coach, say, to go to not Vanderbilt. That's too easy, but like South Carolina, a 3 or 4 win, usual 3 or 4 win team, and in 2 years win the SEC and be in the national championship game. Like, you could not do that in the SEC. I don't think, even though there have been coaches, there have been exceptions where year 2 has been very successful. Bama in 2008. Auburn in 2013, there are examples of second year coaches. 2013 Auburn was first year. That was Gus's first year. My bad. But like 2008 Alabama, Saban's second year, where we were undefeated up until the SEC championship game. I mean, there are exceptions, but you rarely see somebody get hired and win the SEC within 2 years with a program that was scrubbed.
Yeah, and I would like to, because I know the non Alabama crowd is going to point to Lincoln Riley being a good coach and his 3 Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks. I would like to point out that those Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks all played in conferences who had historically bad defenses. I got really frustrated with my Oklahoma's little run there with Heisman candidates and quarterbacks simply because it was completely obvious that those guys were benefiting from playing in the Big 12. And would not have put up the numbers that they did in the SEC. And I think that trend's going to continue at USC. Maybe not now. We'll see. Being in the Big 10, they typically play better defense. But yes, USC is absolutely one of those teams that constantly gets shoved down your throat because, much like Notre Dame, the brand is extremely valuable. Now, Jeff, before we end the video, I'm going to put you on the hot spot here. And give me a team that you don't have a graphic ready for, just off the top of your head.
That consistently is overhyped?
Yeah.
Ooh. Well, the Florida State Seminoles come to mind immediately. I mean, they went undefeated and they left them out. And then this year, yippee-ki-yay, they're 0-2, and the world's on fire down in Tallahassee.
So I actually have 2 for you.
And Mike Norvell was never going to be the Bama coach. Let me just say that.
No, he never was going to be the Bama coach.
He was never even going to get. Okay.
I'm with you, buddy. I'm with you. I've got 2. Right. My first one is going to be Texas A&M, the Aggies.
Oh,
that's
good one.
Them. And then another one from the Big 10 would be Penn State. Everybody seems to always be really high on Penn State, and then they go get clobbered by Michigan and Ohio State every year.
It's every year they're 10-2, and their 2 losses are to Michigan and Ohio State, and they're not even competitive. And then they win they win all the rest of the games.
You're absolutely right.
James Franklin in a nutshell. I got family up in Pennsylvania alumni of Penn State, big Penn State fans up there, and man, they eviscerate James Franklin at times because he cannot win the games you have to win. He beats up on the also rans in that conference, and then loses to Ohio State and Michigan every year.
You're absolutely right. All right, Jeff. Well, that'll do it. Be sure to share with us in the comments who we missed. I'm sure there are several other teams that could have been on this list, but this is who came to our mind. If you're not part of the Way Offsides family, we cordially invite you to be by subscribing. We do live shows every week where we preview games. We do reaction pop-ups. We do a live reaction show every Saturday night. Every other week we have After Dark. Just a lot of good times that we tend to
have. See our faces a lot, and we ain't going nowheres.
Yeah, basketball season's right around the corner too.
Ooh, y'all can get a whole new vibe when basketball season rolls in here, man.
Bama's going to be nasty. But as always, you guys know the drill. Say your prayers, wash your hands, read your Bibles.
Horns down.
Horns down.
Beat Auburn, Tennessee, and LSU.
All of them. Beat everybody.
Everybody.
Roll Tide.